Good morning, Hope Chapel. Let's stand and worship the Lord this morning.
Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Praise in the valley. Praise on the mountain. Praise when I'm sure. I'll praise when I'm down and praise when outnumbered. Praise surrounded. Praise is the water my enemies drowning. As long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to praise. Oh, my I'll praise when I don't. Praise 'cause I know you're still in control. My praise is a weapon. It's more than a sound. My praise is the sound that brings Jericho down. As long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to praise. Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul. And I won't keep quiet. My God is alive. How could I keep it inside? Oh, praise, Lord. Oh, my Praise 'cause you're sovereign. Praise 'cause you reign. Praise 'cause you rose and defeated the grave. Oh, praise 'cause you're faithful. Praise 'cause you're true. Praise 'cause there's nobody greater than you. Oh, praise 'cause you're sovereign. Praise 'cause you reign. Praise 'cause you rose and defeated the grave. Oh, praise 'cause you're faithful. Praise 'cause you're true. Praise 'cause there's nobody greater than you. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. Praise the Lord, oh my soul.
there's joy in this house. Fling wide you heavenly gates. Prepare the way for the risen King. We're singing, open up the doors and let the music
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's clap it up one more time for your worship team, please. My name is Pastor DeAndre. I have the wonderful privilege of being the lead pastor here at HC Pine Hill. I'm going to check in with our First Impressions team and our elders. You are here today on a regular Sunday morning, but this Sunday morning is not a regular Sunday morning because we are having our annual meeting, and we just need to check and make sure that we have quorum in order for us to go into our annual meeting. While we are figuring those numbers out, do me a favor and say hello to someone that you do not know. Again, we're super glad that you guys are here. Thank you for coming. All right. So, again, my name is Pastor DeAndre, and I have the wonderful privilege of being the lead pastor here at HC Pine Hill. And today is our annual meeting, and I know that it's difficult because we bring a little business into our Sunday mornings. And that gets hard because I know that we come to church to come to church. We come to church to hear the gospel. Thank you. We come to church to be encouraged. And, you know, sometimes when we have to stop what we're doing in order to talk business, that can be distracting for a lot of people. But I assure you that as a church, as a nonprofit organization, as a part of the Christian and Missionary Alliance, one, it is in our Constitution and our bylaws that we must host an annual meeting. Second, I will explain that it has been through lots of conversation and discernment from your governing authority at the church, who, if you don't know who they are, you will know before the end of this meeting time, that I wanted to move the annual meeting to a completely separate day of the week so that our Sunday morning would not be hindered. But I was assured that you would not show up if it was on a completely separate day of the week. So, with that being said, there will be a time for general discussion later in our annual meeting. If you do not like your annual meeting being on a Sunday morning, you are welcome, if you are a member, to make a motion to have the annual meeting, all right, to have it on a separate night of the week. Now, that's not something that the body needs to vote on, and when I say the body, I'm referring to you as the church. It's not something in your bylaws or your constitution that you have to vote on that. To be fair, I can choose when the annual meeting is, as long as I communicate that to you guys. But if you're like, hey, I don't like my Sunday mornings being interrupted by annual meeting stuff because I'm here to learn about the Bible, I'm here to praise Jesus and worship Jesus, first let me say, you are praising Jesus and worshiping Jesus by handling your business. Second, I will say you are free to make a motion and or bring up in general discussion that you want to have the annual meeting at a different day. And if we have enough people that want to do that, we will do it at a completely different day. But you better show up at that annual meeting if we're going to have it on another night. Other than that, I know that you're going to be here on Sunday morning at 10 a.m., so that is why we have our annual meeting. And again, my name, if you don't know who I am, it's your first Sunday here, my name is Reverend DeAndre Rolson. I have the wonderful privilege of being the lead pastor here at HC Pine Hill. And today, for the sake of the annual meeting, I will be your moderator for the meeting. Part of my role here at the church, other than being the lead pastor, is that I am the board chair. So I am the chairman of the governing board. That means that I speak for the board in the time that the board needs to speak something publicly to the body. Does that make sense? That doesn't mean that I am in charge of the board. It does not necessarily mean that the board is in fact in charge of me. However, they do govern me, right? So if there was ever a moment where someone said, hey, I feel like the pastor needs to go under some sort of evaluation, or something happened with me and the pastor, the people that you would go to have that conversation is the board of elders, right? If some sort of disciplinary thing needed to be carried out because of what you had brought to the board's attention, they would take that to your district, who is the Metro District of the Christian and Missionary Alliance. But then the Metro District of the Christian and Missionary Alliance needs to come to the governing board, give them the authority to carry that discipline out. Because my license as a licensed minister and as an ordained minister in the Christian and Missionary Alliance does not come from you as the church. It comes from the Christian and Missionary Alliance, and it comes from our district. So the district says, hey, based on him being an ordained minister in this denomination, we need to be involved in the things in which are happening with him as a pastor. I tell you all of that because that is what gives me the authority to be here as at your church, as your pastor, as the lead pastor, as well as the board chair. So with that being said, we're now going to take a moment to pray, and then we'll move into just a time of acknowledgement for our staff and the employees in which we have here at the church. And in case anyone is wondering, I've been informed that we do have quorum, so we can move forward and call the 2025 annual meeting at Hope Chapel to order. Let's pray. God, we are thankful that all of who we are, all of what we do as a church has come from you, Jesus. I know that there have been lots of people, board members, district people, colleagues of mine, mentors of mine, friends of mine, family members of mine, just me personally here, of people that have just been praying for this church, for the work that you have been doing, Lord, and just the amount of people that have come to faith, the amount of baptisms that we've had in this church, the amount of growth that we've had in this church, God, we know that that is only because of you. And Lord, as fun as those things are to be a part of, God, as amazing it is to see you work, God, I'm thankful that you allow us to be a part of that. You allow us to be a part of what you're doing. You allow us to be able to see the fruits of the labor in which we put in, and we don't always get to see that, God. But for some reason, you've allowed it to be made known to Hope Chapel to be able to see the work that you're doing. Part of that, God, is handling some business. So, Lord, even though we're talking business, even though we'll talk finances, even though we'll talk about staff, even though we'll talk about logistic things, God, we know that you are here. This is your church. This is your body. This is your time. Do with it as you please. Pray this in your holy name. Amen. So, we're going to move into a time of acknowledgement of staff and employees. Some of you may know that we have staff members here at the church. Some of you may know that we don't. Some of you may know who they are. Some of you may not know who they are. Some of you may not even know that pastoring as my job is my full-time job. I am paid a full-time salary with benefits from Hope Chapel to be the lead pastor here at HC Pine Hill. At first, I was the only full-time employee at the church. That has now changed, but I am your only full-time paid pastor on staff here at Hope Chapel. Other employees that we have is Caitlin Rolson is our director of worship, and she does do some communicational things. She is a part-time employee here at the church, but you can see the impact that she has had on our worship team and in our church has not been part-time. It has been an extremely beneficial part of our staff. She has been an extremely beneficial part of the growth of our church. She has been an extremely impactful part in the growth of the worship team members that we have here at Hope Chapel. And she is a paid part-time employee. She is paid hourly. She does not receive benefits. And as far as hiring is concerned and how that works here at the church, as the lead pastor, I am sort of like the CEO or the president of the church in the nonprofit world, which means that I have the authority to hire and fire all employees of the church. So anyone that may be hired under me, whether that be custodial staff, part-time staff members, full-time, other full-time pastors, my role as the lead pastor would be to oversee them and to lead them. The elders do step in to a certain extent, but the elders or the governing board, they are not their direct report. Does that make sense? So I am Katie's direct report as the lead pastor of the church. If you did not know and cannot tell from the last name, obviously we are married, right? So with that being said, the governing board did in fact step in during her interviewing process. And if there ever needed to be any sort of disciplinary things that would happen, we would handle that at home. I'm just kidding. Don't be okay with that. The governing board would obviously step in because we are married if there were any disciplinary actions that needed to happen with Katie, as well as how they stepped in during her hire. But again, it was unanimous across the governing board that Katie needed to be the person that we hired here at the church to lead our worship ministry and to lead us in worship every Sunday morning. And I would speak for the board when I say that it was a decision that the Lord had his hand in, and we can see the fruits of the ministry in which Katie has been doing here at the church. So we again are thankful to have Katie on staff, and we'll hear more about the worship ministry momentarily. The newest hire that we have had on our staff is Christy Heyman. She is now the executive assistant to me, the executive assistant to the lead pastor, and her responsibility is to be exactly that. She is to be my assistant. She is to be someone that is there to help me manage my schedule, balance all the things in which I have to balance. And having Christy on board allows me to pastor in the ways in which I need to pastor. It allows me to pour into leaders the way that I need to pour into leaders. It allows me to meet with you in times where I need to meet with you, because believe it or not, even though our church is the size that it is, whether you believe our church is a big church or whether believe our church is a small church, there is a lot of executive and administrative things that need to happen here at our church to keep our lights on, to keep our mortgage paid on time, to pay our staff members, to pay our vendors, to make sure that our international workers are receiving the finances in which they receive, to make sure your seats look the way that they do and they're not too close together, to make sure that the heat is still on when you come in here, to make sure it's not too cold or not too hot, even though you complain about it anyway, right? There's a lot of these things that go into running a church, and that's just the stuff that goes on in the inside of the building. And as you know, we are obviously a church that is outside of the building. So we needed to hire someone that was going to be able to come in, excuse me, and help me balance all of those things as your pastor. The governing board has decided that we are not necessarily in the place to be able to, one, afford, and two, need to hire another pastor who is full-time, but we did need to hire a support staff member that would be able to help balance some of these things. So as you know, we posted that out originally as the office manager position, and then the Lord had called us to starting this position as an executive assistant to the lead pastor. We received Christy Heyman's resume and cover letter. She has extensive experience in this specific role, And she was with the church for years as the church grew for a church about our size to a church over 500 people. And she was the executive assistant to that lead pastor before COVID and her transition and working at a nonprofit organization in the Camden City area. But now she is here with our church. She is an hourly employee and she is full-time. So she is in the office 40 hours a week, but she does not have benefits. And she has, well, let me rephrase that. She does not have health insurance, but she does receive necessary sick time, and she does receive vacation time as well. But Christy is a full-time employee, and she does not attend church here on Sunday morning. She attends church with her mother and her father on Sunday morning. Again, the governing board was okay with that, knowing that her role is to be an executive assistant. Her role is not in any form pastoral. She is an administrative employee, but still under my direct report as the executive assistant to the lead pastor. And the most important role at this church, my good friend Tracy DeVoe. I need to put my glasses on because from back here that looked like comedian, but it's not. Tracy is our church custodian. She handles cleaning the entire church throughout the week, and her job has become extremely important as our church continues to grow and our ministries continue to do what they need to do. And now that we are welcoming outside communities into our building, Tracy does a fantastic job of making sure the inside and even at times the outside of the building is up to par, making sure that you guys feel welcome when you come in here. And it's something that you may not think about, but I guarantee you, if you came in here on Sunday morning and it smelled like the nursery wasn't cleaned out for a little bit and it started fumigating up in this place, and you opened up that door on Sunday morning and you got hit with something you didn't want to get hit with, then you're going to be like, well, where's Tracy? Right? Like, so just, you know who she is, you see the work in which she is doing, and again, just extremely thankful that Tracy is here, and she goes above and beyond what she is required to do as a church custodian, and we are thankful for Tracy and the work that she does. And that is your Hope Chapel staff. These are paid employees here at Hope Chapel. So if you were in the room and I've called your name, would you please stand, give a wave to the body. Thank you very much. Any questions about staff at this time? You do not need to be a member to ask a question. You just have to physically be here. If you do have any questions, please just stand and state who you are and ask your question. I think we might have the other microphone, thank you, available. If you do have a question or anything like that, please raise your hand. Again, this is a safe place. These are open questions. I am a moderator at this point. If I do not know the answers, I will make sure that we get the answer for you guys. And please, again, this is your church, so if something does not make any sense to you, please just raise your hand and answer the question. So now we're going to take, sorry, I didn't look around to see if anybody had any questions. I can't see you. Now I can see you. Okay, I don't see anyone that has any questions. So now we will move to acknowledgement of our ministry partners. Majority of the people that you are going to see here are volunteers. They are not paid. They have full-time jobs. They have families. They are running their ministries very well, I might add, even just as volunteers, with the exception of Katie. She is paid to do the ministry in which she is leading. Let me explain this to you. As your pastor, every single one of these roles, in my opinion, needs to be a full-time paid position. The people that we're going to talk about are doing a fantastic job, but they are balancing work, they are balancing families, and they are balancing running a ministry. And it's, as a person that's done it for a very long time, it's very, very, very difficult to do. So the work in which they are doing and the work that the Lord is doing through them, even the ones that we're going to talk about in 2025, are doing a great work, and they're doing a great service. And if I could, I would pay every single one of these persons a full-time salary at whatever number they wanted. I would give them whatever they wanted to give them, to do the work in which they are doing. And the first person that we are going to mention is our HC Kids director, Chrissy Filing. Chrissy is new at the position in which she is in. But as you step back there, if you're dropping your kids off on the Sunday morning and you're picking them up and they are crying and they're fighting with you tooth and nail because they don't want to leave the room in which they are in, that is a direct reflection of the leadership that Christy Filing has and how she pours into her ministry leaders. Christy has been doing some training with the Alliance, training with the district, training with myself. That will continue to do. She loves what she does. She's called and gifted to do what she is doing, but she didn't do it previously, which is a great testament to the fact that when God does call you, he does qualify you, right? He does equip you to do the work in which he calls you to do. You just have to be willing to give him your yes, okay? And I'm not going to say much more about that because I do believe we have a testimonial video that we are going to share from someone that is currently serving in our HC Kids ministry. So whenever we're ready to show that video, we can show that video.
Start with a little bit of Bible trivia. How many wives did David's son, King Solomon, have? No Googling. And then I kept reading because I was curious about how David became the second king of Israel. And then I kept reading some more because I wanted to see if after David died, if Solomon could fill David's shoes. All I really knew of Solomon was that he was the wise king who wrote the Proverbs and suggested that they cut a baby in half to see whose the real mother was. I couldn't believe it when I came to the 700 wives and 300 concubines part. But I reveal all of this Bible naivete to you because I want to show you how cool this experience was for me. Sometimes when I do feel compelled to get into God's Word, I don't always know where to go or what part to read, and I end up just kind of looking at my Bible without much of a purpose. But one of the things I love about teaching Sunday school for HC Kids is that this Go curriculum that we currently use helps me get into the Bible in a new way and see things I have never seen before. It gives me a sense of purpose for opening God's Word. I want to know what happened before, during, and after the moment of history I'm going to teach about. And then God always surprises me with a new piece of history or insight that I didn't know was there. I'm sure you've heard that quote by Confucius that says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember for a while. Involve me and I actually learn." I'm actually getting involved when I open that lesson plan, when I read it, and when I decide how I'm best going to teach it to the kids. We learn by actively getting involved. And isn't that the goal? We don't want our exposure to the Bible to be like seeds that get thrown on the ground and are quickly forgotten about, so that the devil can come along and take the word right away from us. We want to hold on to the word. We want it planted firmly in our hearts. We want to learn it, truly learn it, not just hear it, but learn it. And we want it hidden deeply in our hearts so that we may not sin against God. Teaching in the littles classroom was a natural decision for me because I'm a teacher by trade. And I know this is probably my spiritual gift. But I teach Sunday school alongside some very talented non-teachers who I hope are having the same experience as me, realizing that getting involved in spreading God's word through these pre-made lessons has had a hugely positive impact on my own life and my walk with God. And I encourage you today to find a way to actively get involved with God's word. I promise you won't be sorry.
So again, that was a testimony that you heard from a ministry partner in the HC Kids. We use the word ministry partner here because we believe in partnering in ministry with you. We don't believe that you are just simply volunteering at a church, right? We believe that there's partnership that's involved with the people that are doing ministry. We want to partner with you to do ministry here at our church, but we also want to partner with God to do ministry in your life. We want to partner with God as He is leading you to do ministry in a lot of different places. So as soon as you start to process and think that God may not be calling me to do ministry in this particular way, understand that you are putting Him in a box, because He can call you to do ministry anywhere that He wants to call you to do ministry, and you're just probably being disobedient to the calling in which the Lord has on your life. So where you hear the Lord calling you to do ministry is, it could be absolutely anywhere. We do believe that the Lord is in fact moving in our children's ministry department. Here's a couple of different highlights, and what we'll do is we'll highlight some things about the ministry, and then we'll talk about one thing that the ministry is struggling with. This has nothing to do with the leadership of the individual people or the leadership of the people in the ministry. This is just what the ministry is currently facing challenges, some ongoing and some looking forward in the future for each and every single one of our different ministries. Again, just simply because of time, we're not going to talk about everything that's in the ministry leaders report, but you should have received a notification that allows you to download the ministry reports from each and every single one of the ministries, okay? If you did not receive one of those, it's probably because we do not have an email on file for you, and we did not print them. We will print them if you ask us to, but we're not printing 200 annual meeting reports, okay? Like, if you didn't give us an email, you didn't get the ministry team report, but we sent it out for you to be able to review it. All right, so some highlights from the children's ministry. And just in the past year, we've had 2 children baptized, which is an absolute praise, because that means that they're hearing the gospel, and that means that they are responding to the gospel. The Proverbs states, "Train up a child in the way that they should go, and they shall not depart from it." Let me be clear here. This is not the call that the church receives. That's the call that you as parents receive. That is your commandment inside of Scripture, to train up your child in the way that they should go, and they shall not depart from it. We just want to partner with you as you do that. So through the partnership with the church and the ministry of the parents, those children confess their belief in Jesus Christ, whether it was here from a church or somewhere else, but we did our part in baptizing them in the children's ministry. With that, there were some kids that stepped up to new classrooms, and Chrissy's been doing a really great job of communicating that and pushing that forward. She's been launching things like the Bible Buddies and teaching their kids how to read the Bible and sharing the gospel with their friends. And my son sleeps with his Bible buddy on a regular basis. And when we sit down and we go through the Bible, he has his Bible buddy there with him as well. In 2024 VBS, there was 51 kids at that Vacation Bible School, and we are expecting there to be more kids at this upcoming Vacation Bible School. The church shuts down for VBS because we are one of the local churches in the area that does do a Vacation Bible School. It is one of those times where there's all hands on deck. A great ministry that highlights our mission and vision statement here at Hope Chapel and our core values to introduce Pine Hill to the love, hope, and power of Jesus Christ. And that is how we do it through our Vacation Bible School. And this year that will be under Chrissy's leadership, directly under Chrissy's leadership. And she will be looking for volunteers for the Vacation Bible School, the VBS. And the registration for that, from my understanding, is currently open. And you can register your kids for the Vacation Bible School. And then an ongoing issue that is not just here at our church, that is at every single church that I have ever worked at as a pastor or volunteered in, there are staffing shortages in the children's ministry department. And I completely understand why there are staffing shortages in the children's ministry department. Because if you're not serving in the children's ministry department, you are looking at the people that are serving in the children's ministry department, and you realize how tired they are and how burnt out they look because they're serving in the children's ministry department. But then you have to do a self-reflection on that. Is the reason that they're burnt out and tired from working in the children's ministry department is because they're serving almost every single Sunday because no one else is serving in the children's ministry department. Rather because you don't feel like you can teach, whether you don't feel like you're called to serve in the children's ministry department. Either way, the people that we have serving in the children's ministry department, there are times where they are scheduled to be in their classrooms 4 out of the 5 weeks of the month. That means that they're not here in this service, hearing the things that you're hearing, being encouraged the way that you were being encouraged, because they are being obedient to the Lord, calling them to the children's ministry department. So with that being said, there are obviously staffing shortages in the HC Kids ministry, and they are still in need of volunteers. So if you would be willing to just simply consider it, please have a conversation with Christy. Other than that, we've got 45, if not 50 kids sometimes on a Sunday morning, every single Sunday back there, learning about Jesus, worshiping Jesus. My daughter tells me stories about the Bible that her father, who is a pastor, is not teaching her. And I know that she's hearing the gospel. My son is hearing the gospel. My other son is hearing the gospel. They wait to see their friends. And it's just an amazing thing that's happening back there in the children's ministry department. So Chrissy, if you are, please, would you stand and let's just give Chrissy a round of applause for the work in which she is doing. So then, the next thing that we're going to move into here is our community engagement team that has previously been led by member Stephanie Lemke and member Rachel Good. And going into 2025, it's going to be led by Rachel and Steph Daniels. And the HC community team, the goal that they have is to engage the community. And a couple of really cool things that have been happening for them is they've had about 5 very huge, impactful events in the community, and they are anticipated. Like, people are calling the church asking when we're going to do our next community event. People are waiting to be involved in the work in which they are doing. There's a lot of borough collaboration, and when I say borough, I mean the people in Pine Hill, other local organizations inside of Pine Hill, some of them being the school district, some of them being other places. A lot of collaboration happening there. It's going to be ongoing. And then Stephanie Daniels is going to be stepping up and helping co-lead that ministry with Steph. So it's going to be really awesome when we see people in our church that are new, that are stepping up into leadership. So ladies, if you are here, would you please just stand, give a wave so people know who you are. A lot of different events that'll be coming up that they're going to be looking for some volunteers to be on that team, so it's awesome. Next, we have Lynn Burrows, who's leading our HC Women's ministry. They restarted the ministry in 2003 with a new team and a few different events. They're currently setting their eyes on filling up the schedule for 2025 with events for each season. The women's ministry team consists of lots of different members that have been going to the church. A lot of women that have been going to the church for a few years. Some of them have been going for decades, and they appreciate the time that they have to be able to serve the women here in our church. Some of the cool things that we're looking at for the women's ministry and the updates in which they have is they go through, they do a conference called Empower, and there is also talk in the works to be able to make that a little bit more of a presence here at our church, but it's definitely a huge presence in the Christian Missionary Alliance, huge presence in the Metro District, and they've been planning a trip for that almost every year, and there's continuation on that. So empowering women in our church isn't just an event, it's something that they believe in as the women's ministry. That will be ongoing, and they also plan to engage in different other faiths. There has been a testimony of a woman that had come to the Bible study, who was Buddhist, I believe, and she started asking some questions about Christianity, and this is how those conversations start in events and programs like this through the women's ministry. And this woman was introduced to Jesus through that ministry, and it creates an environment where people of other faiths are able to come in and start asking these questions. So they're going to follow a very similar schedule there. They're going to do the Empower program. There's going to be a spring Bible study, some summer events, a fall Bible study, possibly a retreat, and some other things in a winter holiday. So we're really, really thankful for Lynn, her leadership, and the work in which she is doing in the women's ministry. So Lynn, if you can, would you please stand and just give a little bit of a wave so that everyone can see you? The next that we have is another ministry here at Hope Chapel that has been making an impact in this community for almost as long as the church has been around, and that is our food pantry ministry. And a couple of really cool things is that the number of families that the food pantry has been able to serve is up by 75%. So that's a praise, but that's terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying to know that there are those families that are out there that do not have food to feed their families. But then, as a church, we have the opportunity to be able to do something about that under the ministry of the food pantry. There's a lot that goes into leading the food pantry. Just on the second and fourth Friday of every month, handing out those baskets to the families, the backs of the families, and praying for those families. They were able to hand out 55 baskets that were distributed for Thanksgiving. The thing about this is, I think, is Lisa, she's probably serving. She's serving in the children's ministry. Look at that. Last year, I believe that we handed out more Thanksgiving Day baskets than we did this year. However, the amount of families that we're feeding has increased this year by 75%, so it would make sense that gets balanced out. They don't really need the Thanksgiving Day baskets if they're being able to feed their family from other foods and things like that. If you Google food distribution centers in Camden County, our food pantry, which is ran out of that tiny little shed right there between my office and the church, shows up as a food distribution center. And that is just search engine optimization. That's just Googling Google, right? Where can I get food from? And our food pantry shows up. One of the first that shows up. We receive phone calls. I wish Christy was here to tell you. We receive phone calls every single day, multiple times a day, asking when our food pantry is going to be up. With that being said, if we're going to hand out Thanksgiving Day baskets, if we're going to increase the amount of families, and that's just going to continue to go up, okay, with inflation, right? We are limited by the storage space that we have for the food pantry. But they are making it work with some built renovations inside of that building, and people donating refrigerators and people donating freezers and things for the food. We get fresh produce and fresh meat and fresh things like that from the Food Bank of South Jersey through the relationship that we have for them. But there is still storage space limitations that the food pantry is experiencing. And they also are in need of volunteers because it is quite a process to get that food out of the delivery truck into the pantry, organized inside of the pantry, and placed into bags and delivered to the families. So again, Lisa is serving, and I don't see Steve here now. But if you do see Lisa, please just, if you can, thank her for the service and the work that she is doing inside of the food pantry, and we can give them a round of applause even now. I'm a little biased about this particular ministry partner that's on the screen right now. Katie Rolson, Director of Worship, has been in the role for some time now. You can obviously see the work in which she is doing with the team, the unity in the team. You can see the experience in which you have here on Sunday morning. A lot does go into being a director of worship here at Hope Chapel, more than I think some of us understand and more than I think some of us know. Obviously, she is naturally talented at it. Obviously, she is using her spiritual gifts, but she is also gifted in administration, organization, songwriting, and other things like that that they are doing. She has spearheaded a lot of upgrades on the tech that is inside of this room that has been absolutely necessary for you to experience the worship that you are experiencing on Sunday morning, to experience the band that you are experiencing on Sunday morning. And I understand that some of us aren't really sensitive to those things, but you're not sensitive to it unless it's bad, right? But if something doesn't sound right, or if something is a little too muffled, or any of those things that you don't like happens, then you're going to realize those things, and then you're probably going to start doing what congregational members do on a regular basis, which is complain about it, right? But we have someone that's inside of the role that is attentive to these things and does a really great job of saying, hey, if we are able to do this, it's going to make this experience better, right? And that is part of Katie's leadership. That's part of the work that she does here at the church, is upgrading some of those tech things. She has about 9 committed Sunday staff, and that is an established thing. This is something that she works really hard to do to make sure that the people that are in that back booth back there are staffed every Sunday, and the people that are on the stage here on Sunday morning to lead you in worship are staffed every Sunday, because we understand that it's something that you guys enjoy. Even though there's some hiccups here and there, they do a fantastic job, and that is all under Katie's leadership. Anything that pretty much happens in here from the start of our morning to the time in which we go home is under Katie's establishment and under her authority. But as you can see, our stage is very limited. It's very shallow. So the more people that we're adding up here, especially me, because you know that I like to move around, our stage is very limited, and we're not able to have the people that we want to have up here. Some things with the screen, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but we are in desperate need to do a stage renovation here, and that was actually just approved by your governing authority. So we will be going through a stage renovation, expanding the stage out a little bit, giving our musicians a little bit better of a time up here as they are not bumping elbows as they do it. And just logistically, obviously the drums are loud, right? But part of the reason that the drums are loud is because we don't have them fully enclosed. It's very difficult for us to do that with the little bit of space that we have here on the stage. So by expanding the stage, we're going to be able to mitigate a lot of that, and it's just going to give you a better experience here on Sunday morning. So, and the reason that that's highlighted in blue like the rest of them were is because when we made this presentation, it wasn't approved, and then we just approved it, so it's no longer going to be something that we have to mitigate and work through. But it's just to show you that, again, through Katie's leadership, she's thinking about you during this time. So very thankful. Again, a huge addition to our staff and our ministry team here at Hope Chapel. So Katie, if you can, and once again, just please stand and just thank her for the work in which she's doing. Next is an individual that has become a really good friend of mine, a really good mentor of mine, someone that I know I can go to who's going to punch me in the back of the head when I need it. Dane Perriman has been here at the church since the beginning of the church. He served in multiple leadership roles here at the church, including on our governance authority, leading different ministries, and now he has the role as our missions mobilizer. And as Dane has said multiple times, this is a role that is newer to the Christian Missionary Alliance, newer to the Metro District, but the importance of this role is to ensure that there's an individual person that is mobilizing our church for missions locally as well as globally. Now, we've launched a local initiative probably since I started here as a pastor to start loving on our neighbors, which came with the change of our bylaws, came with the change of our mission statement, and now Dane's responsibility is to focus on that a little bit more globally. So he's going to be the person that is building relationships with our international workers, one of which includes his daughter, Corinne, and now the relationship that we have with Tea House in Central Asia. And the more as our ministries continue to grow, the more international trips that we take as a church, Dane is going to be the person that is doing that. And even just in the short time that he's been in this role, Dane has already doubled the amount of international workers that we are supporting. And that is going to be an ongoing relationship that we have. Already has one short-term trip in the works to the Dominican Republic, which we have been announcing, and it gives you guys opportunities to be able to do that. And Dane, even though we have announced that international trip, we're already in partnership with the district, in partnership with other people, planning more. We just haven't communicated those things to you guys yet, but know that those are in the work. And again, every church everywhere, this has nothing to do with Dane's leadership. It has nothing really to do with Hope Chapel. This is just something to do with the kingdom. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. When people hear the opportunity to be able to go overseas to international workers for trips like that, often Christians reach out for the low-hanging fruit, right? The things that are easy to grab. The Dominican Republic is going to be challenging, but it is one of those mission trips that's a little bit more of a low-hanging fruit, your chances of finding someone in the Dominican Republic that knows about God, that knows about Jesus, is higher than somewhere like Central Asia, where you're going to go and have a conversation about God, and you and the person that you're talking to potentially could be arrested if not killed, right? That's where the alliance is pushing the churches to share the gospel with, to the ends of the earth, right? All of Jesus for all of the world. Dean, as our missions mobilizer, is embodying that and is saying, hey, PD, I understand that this is extremely important, but I also understand that it's a lot of work you can't do by yourself. So the district has encouraged us to find someone that's passionate about it, rise them up in leadership, and allow them to do what the Lord has called them to do. And right as I was about to approach Dane about that, he ended up approaching me about it. And that's how we knew that the Lord said this is absolutely what needs to happen. So Dane, please, my friend, if you can, please just say hello to everybody. And as you know, he has a very angelic voice that he blesses us with on Sunday morning, as well as his ponytail. So, two great guys that have become very close friends of mine, John Sacco, who currently sits on your governing board as the vice chair, and Justin Good, who is also leading our prayer ministry, or co-leading the men's ministry together. And the events in which they have in 2025 are really great. Obviously, as your pastor, I work with these guys. I am working with these guys throughout the events and things that we have here in the men's ministry. Justin just had a baby, he hurt his arm and things like that. So in 2025, we're going to be launching a lot of really cool things for the men's ministry. The reason that they're not up here yet is because I have had a conversation with John, I have a conversation with Justin about the events in which they're doing. And obviously, as a man in our church, as a husband in our church, as a father in our church, we're going to start approving some of those events and things like that they have for you guys in the 2025 area. So Justin, if you're in the room, please stand. John Sacco is standing in the back there. Justin also leads our prayer ministry, and there's people on the prayer team. So if you come up here on Sunday morning and you receive prayer, the people that you are experiencing that prayer with is someone that is on our prayer team. And what's really cool is not only throughout the week are they praying on their own, but they come here on Sunday morning, just like any other ministry partner in the church. They get here at a particular time. They go into our prayer room and they pray. They don't go in there and talk. They don't go, well, sometimes they talk, but they don't go in there and talk about how their day is. They don't go in there and talk about the weather. They don't go in there and talk about the things that are on the media. They go in there and they pray. Their job is to intercede for the work that God is doing here at this church. Their job is to intercede for the things in which are going on with you. So if you send a prayer request to the church, obviously the prayer team gets it. They're praying for me as your pastor, that I am preaching from the gospel, relying on the Holy Spirit, and if I'm not, that God would remove my ability to speak, because that is what you deserve when you come here, right? So what we are praying for every single Sunday with that prayer team is for you, is for the work that God does. And then they come in here and they meet with our worship team and the people that are volunteering, and they tell us what the Lord is speaking to them. And we pray and we intercede. And a lot of the words that I get on Sunday morning that aren't in my sermon come from the prayer team. And again, thankful to Justin for just creating space, right? Just creating space for those things to happen. So know that you are being prayed for. And the next couple that I'm excited to introduce to you is Pat and Danielle Owens. And they will be our newest HC Youth leaders, and they will be running our HC Youth team. So please, before we continue, if they can, Pat and Danielle, stand up. You don't have to come up here. You don't have to come up here. Danielle is currently serving in the children's ministry, but I want you guys to be able to see her. You go back to class now. You don't want to break that child safety policy. But you guys have an opportunity to be able to see them. And they are leaders in our church. They are natural-born leaders. They are gifted. They're passionate about teens. They're passionate about preteens. Obviously, Danielle is serving in the children's ministry department, so she already has a really great relationship with Chrissy, who is the HE Kids Director. And we do believe about bridging that gap between elementary school kids and middle school to high school age students. And how do we bridge that gap inside of the church? And Pat and Danielle had come up to me and just said, hey, we're really passionate about this, but obviously it's not something that we studied. PD, we know that you are passionate about it. We know that it's something that you studied. would you be willing to help us as we are leading this ministry? And I said, absolutely. But I had to warn them about how difficult that ministry was going to be. But they still stepped up to it. And now they're going to go through some equipping. They're going to go through some training through the district. They're going to go through some training with me as well. All the knowledge that I have about youth ministry from when I studied, I'm going to pour that into them. And I already know that there are teens inside of this building right now that are passionate about youth ministry and ready for that to get up and ready for that to get going. But again, they are ministry partners. They are volunteers, and as you can see, Pat serves on the worship team, so he has got a Thursday night commitment. He's got a Sunday morning commitment. Danielle is serving in the children's ministry, so she's got preparation that she's got to do for her Sunday mornings, her Sunday school stuff, and then she's back there serving on Sunday morning. So I don't know if you've been able to notice at church, but we've got a trend going on here, right? The trend is we've got so many people serving in so many different ministries of our church. And this leads to burnout, right? When they've got to serve in all these different ways. And again, they're people who love to serve. It's what they're doing. But should they have to do it all? No, they should not have to do it all. Why? Because our average attendance is about 150 people, right? And we don't need 150 people serving in every capacity, but we do understand that there are people that are in our church that have been here for a very long time who are not serving at all. Right? That is something that we've got to look at too. Something else that I'm really excited about is I understand the difficulty that Pat and Danielle face as our youth workers. So something that I have been developing that I will hand over to them is something called an HC Youth Advisory Team. This advisory team is not a governance authority to Pat and Danielle. They are not Pat and Danielle's authority. They do not have authority to correct them. They do not have authority to discipline them in any way. Their job is to support them in every single way that they can. Pat and Danielle come and say, hey, we want to take a trip to Orlando, Florida, and we'd want the kids to not spend a dime on it. This advisory team's responsibility is to say, all right, bet. How do we make it happen? Right? That's the role for the advisory team. The reason that this is extremely important is because, again, Pat and Danielle both work full-time jobs. They have 3 beautiful boys, and they're already serving in other ministries. And we know that there are people that want to serve in the youth ministry, but again, you don't want to be directly related to the teens, right? I totally understand that. But this advisory team is going to be a way for you to be able to support Pat and Danielle to do the work that they're doing. I want to be clear here. I will still be supporting them, but in the times necessary, I will have to break them down. I will have to break them down and I will have to build them up. They're going to be coming to me with pastoral things, spiritual things. They also need someone else that's going to be able to go and say, hey, we need to plan this trip. There's a lot of things that are going into this trip. Can you help us? Can you support us? And that advisory team's responsibility is to say yes. We are still developing that advisory team. So if you understand what comes with being that advisory team and you would like to join that advisory team, you can take your cell phone out. You can scan this QR code. It'll take you to a way to be able to schedule a meeting with me because you will be vetted before you get on this advisory team because of how important this role is to the people that are leading this ministry. So we will meet, we will have a conversation, we will talk, we will make sure that you are aware of what your responsibility on this advisory team is so there is no confusion. Once that advisory team is ready to go, Pat and Danielle are going to be ready to go. We're going to relaunch the youth ministry with a lot of really cool and exciting things that they have here at our church. Before we start going into some future things and future ministries launching in 2025, are there any comments, questions, and or concerns in regards to the ministry leaders, the ministry partners, and the ministries in which we have here at our church? I do not see anybody raising their hand. Do not see anyone that seems to have any questions or anything like that. Cool. So in 2025, we're going to be launching a new branch of our church, not a church plant, but a new branch of our church that's called HC Cares. And the HC Cares ministry is going to be responsible for having different ministries in the church that are to care for people in the ways in which the experiences in which they need. Our benevolence fund is going to get umbrellaed under HC Cares. Again, as the lead pastor, I will sit as the head of that board, HC Cares, but there's going to be other ministries that are inside of that. Some of the ministries that you can look forward to are grief counseling. We're going to be launching grief counseling in 2025 under HC Cares. We're going to be launching addictions ministry under HC Cares, and those ministries are going to be led by two of the newest attendees of our church, the Misulek family. So you can see that they're going to stand up and just wave at you guys there. They have decades of experience in leading grief counseling ministries and addictions ministries. And most recently, I have asked that they would go through a training with the Grief Share ministry to receive a certification, not to ensure that they know what they're talking about, because I know that they know what they're talking about. They've been doing it for 25 years and just hearing their passion behind it. But what this does is it allows them to receive, obviously I'm a guy about certifications. I got a lot of certifications. I'm going to be getting more certifications. But when they have this piece of paper, believe it or not, it opens up doors for our church and this ministry in the streets. It opens up doors in the state, because we can now communicate that we have trained and licensed, certified professionals available to people in the community and people in Camden County, and that matters to the states, right? It's the same reason that the Christian Missionary Alliance changed this whole idea of who is able to get ordained or not ordained and receive the title of reverend, because there are people that are across the seas that are doing the same thing that everybody else is doing with licenses and ordained, but they can't do it because they don't have the title of reverend, and the title of reverend isn't even a biblical term. So let's do something about that, right? When they receive this certification, we are able to communicate to the community. We have people that know what they're talking about, and unfortunately, the community doesn't care that they've been doing it for 25 years inside of a church. They care that they have a certification. I know that they can teach this. I know that they can do it. But once they have this piece of paper, it tells everybody else that they can do it, and it breaks down walls. You understand? It breaks down walls and allows people to come into our church. But here's the awesome thing about it. Once they're certified, it now allows us to have HC Cares as an initiative to be able to apply for grants that is going to be able to help us grow that ministry and to grow the church. And this is a couple that has been doing this for so long and is obviously extremely passionate about it. We are also looking at ways to be able to rope in mental health care in the HC Cares initiative and be able to receive licensed therapists who can go and give mental health therapy to the people that need it and can't afford it, right? Because I don't know about you, but that there are times where I need a therapist and I can't afford it, right? And I know that there are people out there in the world that do that, that need that as well. So we're going to move over to your governing board. This is their highest level of spiritual authority in your church. This is who is currently sitting on your governing board and the terms in which they are in, and we'll talk about how to push them through. Again, my name is Pastor DeAndre, lead pastor here at Hope Chapel. When I applied for this position, and I was given this position through the authority of the Christian Missionary Alliance in the Metro District in your church, I sit on your board. I receive board chair seat. That is my seat unless I yield it to someone else, right? Again, doesn't give me any extra authority. It just means that I can speak on behalf of the board and also why I'm doing all of the talking here right now. This is ongoing for me. So as long as I'm your pastor, I am your elder. I'm one of your elders. I am your board chair unless I yield that. Dan Kakuit is an elder and a governing board member at our church. He is currently in his second term. The terms are 3 years, so Dan is within his second term in his 3-year term, and that this means that Dan will have to take a full term off once his term ends, and he will have to be revoted in after that 3 years if we want him to be a board member. John Sacco is the board vice chair. He is also in his second term. So when John's current term ends, he will need to be voted in, but he can't be voted in until after 3 years, which is another full term. Last year, a change to our bylaws and the Constitution of the Christian Missionary Alliance allowed us to welcome non-elders. I'm being very specific here. It does not just mean women, but non-elders onto our governance authority under something that's called constituted authority. They have the authority, because of a majority elder board, to carry out the responsibilities under the governance authority, which allowed us to be able to welcome some extremely talented, gifted, and great communicators that love the Lord, that know the Bible, that are willing to carry these things out when necessary, like Nancy Casino, who is under as a governing board, has the responsibility of being a member at large, which means that her role and responsibility is to be in relationship with you guys and to hear the voices that are going on and to come back and help us as a board know what do we need to do to be there for you guys. These are going to be some of the people that you're going to get visits from when you're sick and in the hospitals and you need someone, and you need the pastor, and the pastor isn't available. They're going to be these people. Jedediah Rakonda, most recently voted in as an elder. He is in his first time. He is an elder, but also a member at large. Tony Searley is a member at large. It's her first term. And then Terry Bruninghouse was voted in as your treasurer, and this is also in her first term. So again, all of these roles that they have here are in the Constitution and the bylaws of the Christian Missionary Alliance, and they are required to be under have this role as the governance authority. And we, as the governance authority, and I want to make this clear, we speak as one voice. Okay? So if there is disagreement with the board, if we take a vote and the vote's 70% and it passes, that doesn't mean that the other 30% on the board get to go around and be like, well, I didn't agree with that and I didn't want to talk about that. No, they're not allowed to do that. There is discipline if things like that happen. And with that being said, if you have an issue or something is going on and you go to one of them or you come to one of us and you have a conversation with one of us about that, do not be surprised if the rest of the governing board knows, okay? You went to that person as an elder. You went to that person as a governing authority. We're going to find out, right? So if you're like, hey, I don't like Pastor DeAndre, his messages are too long and yada, 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 and you say, don't tell him I said that, don't be surprised when they tell me. Not that, hey, PD, you need to know who's spreading secrets about you. No, you are speaking to a governing board member, right? You're speaking to an authority in our church. We speak as one voice, right? With that being said, if there's ever disciplinary things that need to happen in the church with members, we, not just me, but we carry that out as a board together. If it's disciplinary for me, we carry that out as a governing board member. If it's a staff member who is not licensed in the Christian Missionary Alliance, so for example, Katie, not licensed in the Christian Missionary Alliance. Christy, not licensed in the Christian Missionary Alliance. Tracy, not licensed in the Christian Missionary Alliance. The board does not have authority over them. They cannot carry out discipline for them because they are not licensed workers. They are staffed employees. Does that make sense? Ministry team partners, if they're members, board. If they're not members, not the board. But we have a stipulation for that. We take care of those things, okay? Any questions about our governing board authorities? Okay, awesome. The bylaws state that at any time, any person that you would like to see on the governing board can be nominated to be on the governing board. Hear me when I say this. Just because it's permissible doesn't make it ethical. Please do not nominate somebody without talking to that person first. Because if they're nominated by you, if you approach someone on the board and you say, hey, I'm nominating blah, 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 blah to be on the governing board, we are going to hunt that person down and we are going to pursue with the full force of the HC Pine Hill Governing Authority to get them on our governing board. And it's very hard for us and very confusing for us when we go and have a conversation with that person and they're eligible to be a governing board member and they're like, I don't want to do that. All right? So have a conversation with them, talk to them, and then if you feel like they can be a member of our governing board and they're willing to do that, you can then bring that person forward and they are able to go through the process of being a governing board member. There will be an opportunity to make motions at the later for members, Please note that the bylaws clearly state that if you do make a motion today, that motion can be entertained, but it cannot be voted on today. It has to be voted on at the next annual meeting, okay? So now we're going to move into their 2024 finance update. There's only going to be some highlights here. If you have questions, we can get those questions answered. But you should have also received a breakdown for the 2024 expense year. What we're looking at here is in 2022, we can see that our expenses did outweigh our tithes and offerings for the year, not by much, but by a little bit there. And in 2023, that gap got a little higher there for expenses, which was almost close to $300,000. And then in 2023, our giving was a little bit shorter than that. But as you can see in 2024, our expenses were down in 2024. So we did come in expenditure under what we expected to spend for 2025, which was the budget that we had pushed out to you guys. But our giving exceeded our expenses and was a little bit more closer to that $300,000 mark that we had pushed for 2024. So as you can see, is if our expenses were up, we would have been able to make budget for the year. We probably still would have had a surplus there. And as you can see in 2022, there was a negative. 2023, there was a negative, meaning that the church had lost finances in that time. So by giving year, it was last year was $278,000. This year, about $296,000. And that was this is expenses out for the giving year, in for the giving year. So we were at $17,000 surplus for 2024. And this is based on the graceful giving that you guys had. What I like to be able to do, I know that we're a little bit behind time, but again, it's our annual meeting. These are things that have to be communicated. If at any time you need to go and grab your children, please do that. Go grab your children and come back into the room. But before we do that, what I would like to do is be able to stand and be able to actually sing the doxology to give thanks to the Lord for the gifts in which he had done. And I will lead you in that, and I don't have the greatest voice, so please make sure that I am not singing by myself, and then after that we will pray. So if you would be willing, please stand. Let's sing together. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Jesus, we thank you for the blessings. We thank you for the provision. We thank you that you have showed us in 2024 that you are Jehovah Jireh. God, I believe that you are my provider, that I am not given the provisions that I have through the church. But God, if the church stopped giving, you would still provide for my family. And God, we're thankful that you've provided for all of the families in Pine Hill. We are thankful that you've provided for so many families in so many ways, in so many great and amazing ways have you provided for people in Camden County through our church. We're thankful for those that have gracefully given to the church, that allowed us to be able to pay off one of our mortgages, that you've given blessings to the church that allowed us to bless our international workers, that you have given through the church that we were able to bless families in Pine Hill to pay bills for people that could not pay bills, to give food to people that did not have food. You are Jehovah Jireh. You are our provider. But God, we know that there are people that still struggle with this. So Father, would you come? Would your Spirit rest on their hearts? Would you allow them to make the necessary steps to make giving part of their worship? Pray this in your holy name. Amen. I will take a moment here that if you need to go and grab your kids, our teachers are aware that this is our annual meeting, and that they are ready to teach them. And once you have your children and you're back, we can continue with some other things. Now would be a really good time for me to tell a joke, right? You said put my glasses on first? That is a joke, right? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Dave done spoke the truth. All right, Dave, we get it. We get it. Now's the time, good time to use the bathroom if you got to use the bathroom as well. What's up, Shouty? Shouty! If there is still a First Impressions team member inside of the room, I don't want to rush people from picking their kids up, but if they want to come back in here, that's not the time for them to be having conversations with people. If they want to leave and go home, that's fine. Or if I just don't want to hold it up as much more than we already have. When we feel as though, John, when we feel like the hallways are either cleared out or separated with people that are not coming back in versus coming back in, we'll continue. You guys ready for a Super Bowl? Yeah. I gave that necklace away. I don't even know where it is. We'll get you another one. Hey, I mean, if Kenny Pickett plays, you don't. You said then the Eagles will definitely win. Oh boy, I'd be sad. I know, but you didn't have my backup quarterback. Hey, handsome. Hi. Look at my babies. There's my babies. All right, the important people are back now. We can start. Again, this in a little bit more detail is accessible to you. For me, either digitally, thank you, brother, either digitally or in a profit and loss scenario. So what I'd like to be able to do is, as we continue, expenses at $278,000 a year, giving at $296,000 a year. That does include some larger gifts, but those gifts are accounted for in the expenses. So, for example, our mortgage, we had a second mortgage that was on the smaller building that's out there. That mortgage was paid for by an anonymous donor within the church, and that was the amount of $12,000. That we paid our mortgage off, but because it is a mortgage payment, it was calculated as an expense, okay, because we paid the mortgage, it's like a bill. Even with that, giving at $296,000, which gave the church, going into 2025, a surplus of $17,000. And again, thankful to the Lord, but you're, as a Hope Chapel, as a church, the obedience that the Lord has given you, but also understand that there was a lot of work done to the entire roof was replaced, and the HVAC system was replaced last year as well. And we're not calculating that as an income, but that is provision from the Lord. So if we look at year over year, giving in 2023 was $282,000. Giving in 2024, sorry, that should say 2024, was $296,000, which meant that there was $14,000 more giving in 2024 than there was in 2023. As far as expenses, what kind of expenses were up in that year is that per my contract with the church, that they do pay me health insurance, but they also help cover medical expenses and things like that. And if you remember, I obviously ruptured my Achilles, so there was a greater expense medically for that. My daughter also broke her arm, so she needed to get surgery, so there was a greater expense there for that. And then the fluctuation was that there was a transition in salaries. We had terminated the previous worship director, and we had hired 2 lay staff members to be able to do that, and that kind of balanced out that same salary, but it still came under because they were hourly employees and they were not being paid exactly as much as that was there. So the only other expenses that were a little higher were like buildings and grounds things, but nothing was exceedingly out of the ordinary for 2024. Before we go into 2025, any questions about the 2024 expenses, profit and loss? Again, within detail can be given to you via a sheet, and you can take a look at that. Okay, I see no questions there. Going into 2025 finances, it is currently not in your bylaws and currently not in the Constitution that your church, or our church, Hope Chapel, needs to vote and approve the budget. Okay? It is not in your bylaws. It is not in your Constitution. So whatever budget I create and I give to the governing board, and the governing board votes on that budget, that is the budget in which it was presented. Okay? In 2025, we're presenting the estimated expenses in 2025 to be $319,000. Not much of a bigger expense than what it was last year. A little bit of a percentage expense, which is, for cost of living increases and things like that. Some of the increases that we're going to see in the expense sheet comes from staff and salaries and insurances. We do increase insurances because of inflation. So right now, the insurances at the church were estimated to be about $24,000. And understand that just covers me. We're not giving anybody else insurance here at the church. It's just me. $24,000 covers my family, my entire family. So understand that if we hired another pastor, we would have to pay that pastor health insurance as well, which would probably be another $24,000 for them and their family. Okay, so we increased insurances there through the through investigation with the Metro District of the Christian Missionary Alliance and some documentation, the amount of years. Hi, baby. Quiet right now, okay? The amount of years that I've been your pastor, growth in the church, merit, and cost of living. I did receive a raise that was given to me by the governing board to essentially put me at where a lead pastor with my experience and the size of our church, as well as getting ordained, should be here in 2025. And then our staffed employees also received raises due to cost of living and merit. Our district support is obviously going to go up if our giving goes up, because we give the district a percentage of what we receive in tithes and offering, and we also give to the Great Commission Fund a percentage of what we receive in our tithes and offerings. So that 319 is going to be, we're going to see an increase in expenses there. There will be an increase of expenses in our mortgage because of the refi, but the game plan here is to try and keep our mortgage amount the exact same amount of money that we're paying right now, but we will be refining the mortgage, which means that our amount of debt will increase. So you will be able to see that. Obviously, with the ministries that we have going on at the church, starting with the youth ministry, ministries meeting in the church and contracts in which we are signing, we're going to see an increase in utilities, and which means that we're also going to see an increase in building insurances and things like that. In 2024, we've obviously signed contracts with our international workers, but we already have that established. That's there. Ministry team budgets you're not going to see an increase overall for the ministry teams, but you're going to see an allotment for the ministry teams that shifted. Some ministries received lesser budgets because they have less projects that they have to do. Other ministries team received a higher budget because they have other projects in which they need to be able to do. Benevolence in buildings and grounds, the benevolence fund that you're going to see is directly from what people give to the benevolence fund. And the building and grounds, because of the building renovation that we're going to talk about, the building and grounds will go up a little bit, and then the outreach obviously will go up via community and the things in which we're doing. But the things in which are highlighted are going to be the things that you're going to see a little bit more of a higher increase for the projected $319,000 a year. Any specific questions about the $319,000 that we are expecting for 2025? Yes, sir.
I know there's been some talk about doing a kitchen downstairs and some upgrades around the church. Is that included in that number?
So that will be under the renovation, the refi for the mortgage. That's going to be under that. But again, the goal is to be able to keep the mortgage payment around the same amount of money, to not see a huge increase and be able to take care of some of those projects. Great question. Yeah.
What about the bathrooms?
Yeah, so the bathrooms are actually, the governing board actually just approved a quote that I had sent over to them. We are working with a local plumber. He is a local believer. And we were able to take the bathroom renovations out of the refi simply because our 2024 building and ground maintenance that we did not use, this project for the bathrooms will fit under that from what we already have budgeted for building and ground maintenance in 2025. We're not expecting to use that entire budget, and we're not putting it in the refi anymore. So the bathrooms have actually just been approved to make some necessary updates inside of the bathrooms under what we can afford under our budget. So we're not going to see an increase there either. But we will be able to do the necessary work to every single, except for the women's bathroom at this time. But a lot of the faucets, the urinals are going to be fixed in the men's bathroom. The faucets in the urinals in the children's bathroom is going to be fixed. We're going to put a little bit more of a safer vanity in that other bathroom for the kids and get rid of one of the urinals because they don't really need it over there. And then we're going to be able to freshen up those bathrooms. And we do believe that, well, I do believe that those changes to those bathrooms will be more impactful by taking that out of the refi so that we can put that money on other things that need to be changed. But the bathrooms will be updated and we can afford to fix any of the things that break in our buildings and grounds budget. Great question, Dave. Yes?
I heard someone suggest using that patio area there as like a kitchen area or just...
It's going to cost us entirely too much money to close that up. Yeah, we had a consult come in for that, and they just said because of the, obviously one, we just put a brand new roof on it, so the time to close that up would have been then. And two, if we do close it up, the runoff for the rain is going to be able to make sure that does not hurt us in the long run, it's going to cost us way too much money. It's just too expensive to put into the refi. Yeah. But we do have plans for that area to become a little bit more of a community space, but just not closing it up is just not an option at this time. Sorry? Yeah, I'll be honest with you, it is on the lowest part of that list of things that need to be fixed at this church. It's down there. But there is a plan. Like actually Dane Pearman had been working with me on something for that. But it's like if we can take care of all the other things we got to take care of, we'll entertain it. But right now it's not a priority. If somebody wants to give to that project and change that, by all means, go for it. But right now, it's not a priority. Yes?
When do you expect the renovations to start?
We're going to talk about that. Any questions specific to why the proposed expenses proposed giving budget is $319,000, specifically to that. Okay, let's move on now. Guys, this is important. Almost half the amount of people that go to church here already left before we even got to this point, right? Making tithing a part of your worship ensures that questions like this can be answered with yeses and not nos, right? I will be honest with you, if everyone in this church stopped giving, everything in here will be cut, and the last thing that will be cut is to pay our employees and to keep the promises we made to our international workers. At a minimal, that is what this church will do. Everything else, a couple years ago, I told you, I stood right up here and I told you, fix this building or sell it because I'm not attached to it. This isn't my church building. This is your church building. There are things that you guys want to be doing. There are things that you want to get done. There are changes that you want to see. The reality of that is we only have but so much that we can work on. If every household in our congregation tithed at least 10% of your income, we would have an operating expense budget or an operating giving that would blow our expenses out of the water. It would be almost double what it is right now if every person in our church gave 10% of their household income. With that being said, this $296,000 that we saw, even the increase to $14,000 more than what we saw last year, is still only being carried out by a very small percentage of the people in our church. And this is every church's issue. This is a message that every pastor preaches almost every single time. It's still only a very small percentage of the people in our church. What I've learned recently is that there are people that are not ready to make tithing a part of their worship. Some people are, so I don't believe that it's commanded inside of the Bible to tithe. You're wrong, it is, but we can talk about that later. But the reality of it is, it's a heart issue. When you're ready to make something part of your worship, you make it part of your worship. When you're ready to sing out on Sunday morning and dance that is so embarrassing like David did, you're ready to make that part of your worship. You will when you're ready. I'm just saying, hey, make tithing a part of your worship. And when you are ready to make tithing to this church a part of your worship, you will be able to partner with us in doing what the Lord has called us to do. We exist to introduce Pine Hill to the love, hope, and power of Jesus Christ. Doing the things in which we present to you are the things in which we are asking, which is our way of being able to do that. I can't stand up here and be a foolish pastor and tell you that money doesn't matter. Money matters. I'm not asking you to tithe so that I can get more sneakers. I'm not asking you to do that, because the reality of it is the church signed a contract with me. So if you all stop tithing, my salary would probably be one of the last things to go. So no, if you start giving more, it doesn't mean I'm going to get more money and buy new sneakers. It means that we are able to do what the Lord has called us to do to make a graceful and a powerful impact in our community. If you consider yourself to be a member of this church, it is an understanding that you are tithing, because it is one of the ways that we as a church are able to introduce Pine Hill to the love, hope, and power of Jesus Christ. So again, what we are asking is that you make tithing a part of your worship. Make tithing a part of your worship so that you are able to help us fulfill what our mission statement has called us to do. So 2025 goals, same goals as we had in 2024, building renovations and refinance to help do the building, and then I would like to be able to start pursuing hiring one additional full-time pastor. Again, that's based on insurances and things like that. What was our goal for last year? We did not do that. We didn't hire another full-time pastor, but we were able to hire a full-time executive staff member that was going to be able to help us do what we needed to do. And just to understand that, to hire another full-time pastor at a minimal, we're probably looking at $60,000, if not more, for their salary, and then health insurance being about $24,000 plus. That goes up obviously with experience for the pastor and education and things like that. I don't want to make an embarrassing offer to a pastor that we can't help them move their family to South Jersey and buy a house in South Jersey, right? Like what use would that be, you know? So those are the goals for 2025. And then what we'll do is we'll move over to the refi project here. The initiative that we are launching is Refi to Multiply. We're not building a bigger building for our church. We're not renovating our building just for us. The goal to refi our mortgage, the goal to expand our building is a goal for the community. What we are doing is we are initiating a refi to multiply. All that we're doing is in order to share the gospel and to grow our church. Part of that refi to multiply is renovating the downstairs area to be a core space for the youth ministry. That is the goal for downstairs. It's not going to be turned into classrooms. It's not going to be turned into a storage space like it is right now. The goal is to refi that downstairs to create a core space and to create a brave space so that teens are able to come, be in an environment where they're loved on, be able to have those hard conversations where Pat and Danielle can train their leaders and they can pour into these students. With that being said, that kitchenette downstairs will belong to the youth group, but what we are doing is we are going to we're going to add a kitchenette somewhere up here on this side of the church right now is what we're looking at, partially because we can get to the water heater either downstairs or the water heater that we just put back here for the baptismal pool, and be able to create a kitchenette area that's up here. And then actually, we're going to be able to open up one of those classrooms a little bit more because we're currently not using one of them for the children's ministry department, and making some renovations like we're doing to the bathrooms right now. And then a lot of it is going to carry outside. So right now, an issue that we're dealing with right now is that when it rains and it freezes over, there's giant ice, big things of ice out there because of the parking lot. And every time we get it plowed, the rocks get moved a little bit more, and it's awful. So we can't pave that. We have to put gravel back out there. It's very expensive to put gravel back out there, but it needs to be done. As well as this parking lot over here. The Dart parking lot is not terrible, but it should be graveled as well over there. And then some other building renovations and things that we have for that. But the game plan is right now we are working with Orchard Alliance, and they currently hold our mortgage for this, for our current mortgage that we have. We are working to refi with them. And the goal is, again, when we do the refi, to be able to cover all the projects that we have and keep our mortgage payment exactly the same. And right now our mortgage payment is about $1,900 a month, but that also included the second building right there. So our $1,900 a month that we're paying right now is making a greater impact on this mortgage per the snowball effect that Gordon Ramsay talks about. Dave Ramsey, sorry, Gordon Ramsay is a chef. They're both cooking. I'm just kidding. Sorry, that's what the kids say. So my vision, church, my vision here is that maybe 10, 25 years down the road, whenever it is, that our church is able to expand to this entire block. Not because we have so many people in our church, but because we're now able to build a building that better suits our community. We're able to offer rooms for free mental health care. We're able to offer hangout spaces for youth groups. We're able to offer training facilities and meeting rooms for local authorities that are meeting. We're able to have a worship center, places where people are able to host concerts or to be able to have birthday parties and all those other kinds of things. It's just a center for the community to come to our church and be able to use. And simply because of a church, we're able to do things that people in the community aren't able to do. We have the freedom to be able to do those things. We are experiencing a little bit of that right now. Our mortgage is about $21,000 before we can get completely free of any debts that we currently hold, about $21,000. And we just signed a contract with a majority Spanish-speaking church that rents our building out 3 days a week, and the amount in which we are receiving from that congregation is $2,000 a month. So even just simply on that contract that we have, we are able to double our mortgage payment, and that is the intention, is to either take that money that we're receiving from that congregation, double our mortgage payment to be able to snowball that a little bit better, or put it directly into buildings and grounds, save the money, and take care of some of the projects that we are having on our own. In order for this refi to multiply project to start, we are going to now move our annual meeting into what's called new business. When we talk about new business, these are things that need to be motioned on, things that need to have a second, and then once it's seconded, both by members, it can be discussed by anyone in the body and then voted on by members. In order to move forward with the rest of our refi, The motion that I am currently making, and I will explain this after it is seconded, the motion that I am making right now is that we actually change the address to our church to East Clairview, and it would no longer be on East Branch. So that is the current motion that is here under the stipulation that we find an address that works. The motion is to take our address from East Clairview, take our address from Branch, move it to East Clairview. So our address tells us that the front of our church is right here. What I'm asking is that we move our address to our church so that the address to the church brings people to the actual entrance of our church, which is on East Clairview, and that would be the original start of our refi project. Can we just hit a button on that screen? It's just not used to me talking for this long. So that is the motion. That would be the motion on the floor. As the moderator, I cannot officially make the motion, but as the board, Dave Sayre makes the motion to change our address from East Clairview. That motion is within order because Dave Sayre is a member. It is seconded by Rachel Good, within order because Rachel is a member of the church. It is now open for discussion, and I will start the discussion by stating I have personally had at least 10 conversations with people in Wawa, and if you don't believe me, check my facts. I'm in Wawa every day. And part of it is because they told me, oh, you're the pastor of that church. And I say, yes. And they're like, I was going to go to your church, but when I drove over to your church, it told me that your address to your church was on East Branch, and I couldn't figure out where to park. I didn't know where the front of your church was. And it's been a conversation I've had for the last 4 years, and we just need to do something about it. Second thing is, when we pay our bills, we're paying a water bill for something like 36 East Branch because 28 East Branch doesn't even exist. It's never existed. For some reason, I'm not really sure why, but we put 28 on a mailbox and the tax assessor is telling us that that address doesn't exist. Third thing is, both of these buildings, our church and that office, are both zoned as residential. This is not a commercial building. It's not zoned commercial. It is a commercial building and it should be zoned commercial, but we can't. And we can't attach both addresses to it. So with the change of this address from 28 East Branch, so this church is currently 28 East Branch. The office, or the office house, or which my daughter calls it, is 1006 Pine Street, is the address to my office. What I would like to do is, if it's voted on, and again, there's nothing in our bylaws that state that you have to vote on this. I just want to be clear. But I want you a part of this. Once we change the address to, if we change the address to East Clairview, the 28 East Branch no longer exists. We take the 1006 Pine Street. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional thinking about it. We take the 1006 Pine Street address and we give that address to the food pantry. Because now they have property and now we can apply for grants and we can receive funding for it. And it takes the initiative and it just explodes it, right? Because they have property, and we can separate the two, right? So if we wanted to knock that building down, which by the way we should because it's falling apart, as we expand the church, we now have the East Clairview entrance that people can enter into to get to the church. And if we needed to, we now have the property to be able to expand the food pantry in ways that we've not been able to expand it in the past. But it all will start with the East Clairview entrance. With the change of address will come changing that sign, obviously, but we have the room to be able to cover that in the buildings and the grounds budget. And another part of this is that the congregation would be willing to start another initiative that we'll announce a little bit later, that we're in a good place to be able to refinance our mortgage the way that it stays right now, or we can pay the mortgage off, the $21,000 off, and start a brand new mortgage. Either way, our mortgage company is expecting that our mortgage rates are going to go down, and it'll be a good benefit. We'll get more bang for our buck because, again, the goal is to keep the mortgage exactly the same amount pay-wise, if not pay that down faster than we've got to do. Either way, the church is going to move forward with the mortgage refi because we do not need the congregational approval to be able to do that. We need the district involved and things like that. And again, this is all based on the Constitution and bylaws. If you see something in the Constitution and bylaws that says something that I'm not saying, please let me know. We still will ask the congregation if they are willing to come on board and help pay off this $21,000 that we have in our mortgage. expeditiously while still keeping our budget at $319,000. But again, phase number 1 is change the address to East Clairview through the tax assessor. We will have a ribbon cutting ceremony with a revealing of the new sign with the address on it. Now, when people Google Hope Chapel, they're actually taken to the East Clairview entrance, and if there's not enough parking, they are escorted by members of the First Impressions team over to the dirt parking lot, and then there's going to be other signs and things like that along the building. So the motion on the floor is to change the the address to the church from East Clairview, from East Branch to East Clairview. That motion was seconded. It is still open for discussion if anyone has any questions or comments or concerns. Do not see anyone moving forward with any questions, comments. Sorry. Go ahead, Ron. From my understanding right now, there is not a cost, but we have budgeted for things like that. It can be fit under. Yeah. I'm not quite sure. When I talked to the tax assessor, I don't believe he said anything about a cost, because the address doesn't exist, right? Like, we would pick one between Jeannie's house and I know the family's name. I just forget it. I'm sorry. Dave, go ahead.
My question is, are we gonna put a sign showing the church? Some people can't find it.
Yeah, that's part of the issue that we're working on. There's going to be signage on East Branch pointing people to East Clairview, but we have to be careful with the sign we put on East Clairview because it can't obstruct the other homes. So, but yes, there will be a sign. We're going to try and get creative with what that looks like. It might be flags or something right next to the entrance. But again, that's all going to be under the initiative when we actually change the address, because we don't want to get flags right now on an address that we're going to change. Right? We want to get the new flags with the address that are on there, and we can put those up during the ribbon cutting ceremony, and they will stay up. But we'll obviously have to take it down because the Spanish church comes in. The flags can't say technically Hope Chapel, so they have to be movable for other ministries and events that we have here at the church. Any other questions? Comments or concerns? Motions can be amended as well if you need them to be amended as well, but anybody knows that. I've been reading Robert's Rules for the last 4 years, so. Okay. All right. So I see no one else moving forward, so we're going to move forward with the votes. Remember, if you're a member, you can vote. If you're not a member, you can't vote. I don't think it's going to matter here. If you are in favor of moving the address with an address change number, I will present to the congregation from East Branch to East Clairview, please state aye. If you are opposed, please state nay. The ayes have it. The motion so carries. All right. Wonderful. Let's clap that up. It's awesome. So now we're just going to open up the floor for general discussion. This is a time that anyone can say anything that they want. They can kind of just communicate whatever they want to communicate. I love this church. I hate this church. Whatever you want to do. Open for general discussion. Unless anybody has a motion that they want to make. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have cleared that from new business to general discussion. New business, anything that needs a motion and a second it's in order to be entertained. Yes. Stop. Sorry. If this is general discussion, it can wait. If it needs a motion, it comes up now.
Well, it is a kind of a motion. I would like them to make, put a fixed light over the pantry building for nighttime, because people walking there on the unlevel ground, there's roots and there's potholes. I don't want anybody tripping and breaking their leg or their ankle while they're doing that. There should be a light on top of that to...
On the, where the door is? Okay. The motion is within order, but not necessary, because we can do that. We can just take care of that. The body doesn't have to vote on that. We can take care of that light. Yeah, it's not a problem. Any other things that needs to be voted on? Nominations? What do you need, baby? All right. Mom. He needs mom. That's a good answer. All right. I don't see anybody moving anything for new business. Anything for general discussion? Can we buy the wall? Is that an actual general discussion question? Because I have the answer. No, I agree with you. That was actually something that the governing board and I had considered, is purchasing the wall when we thought about refining the mortgage. Do we not refi the mortgage and purchase the wall with intent to either move the food pantry over there or to create another business or something like that? I think it's an absolute fantastic idea. Don't quote me on this, but I think in the conversations that we were having is we can't put anything in there that is in competition with the wall because the wall owns the building. So food distribution, food sales, anything like that that's in that competes with the wall, we can't do that. Again, don't quote me on it. It's just my interpretation. But the building is still currently for sale, and buying the wall or something like that would not be out of order for a church to do, because they have done things like that in the past. The last time that I checked in, Heidi, are you still here? I'm here. I think maybe it might still be for sale for upwards of $300,000 was the price that they had looked at for it previously. I know that some people in the borough know that. Joey, do you know that for a fact, how much it is? I heard $300,000. Yeah, so about $300,000 would be the cost of that wall, and it would not be out of order. Are you reaching in your pocket for $300,000 right now? Got change for $1 million? That's funny. That's funny. Part of the goal would be able to do that, right? So think about the expansion that we would be able to do as a church if 25 years down the road, we were able to own this whole block and purchase something like the wall. The idea is that the food pantry eventually will grow to the extent to where we're going to need something like that, and the wall will be a perfect place for it because it's got a refrigerator in it, right? Like it's already ready to do that, you know? So, Tammy.
When you mentioned the parking lot can't be paved, was that because of price or variance?
It's because of when it rains, we would flood our neighbors out like Jeannie. There's no runoff, there's no drainage. And even with the asphalt that they can put in there that allows water to drain through it, if you're an engineer and you do these kinds of things, you may know a little bit better than I do. It's still not going to be enough that when we do get heavy rainfall, it's going to flood our neighbors out. So we can't do that. It has to be gravel. So if this has to be gravel, this side of the parking lot has to be gravel. We have a quote for that, and then we have a quote to re-gravel the new parking lot as well. So, but no, we simply can't do it. Now, if we were able to purchase the properties next door to us, then we could pave the parking lot because there's nobody there that we have to be concerned about flooding out. Yep. Yes, absolutely. Sorry, the microphone's not just for this room. It's if we're still live streaming and there are people that want to hear what we're saying. Yeah, I know.
All right. As far as the refi project and like the basement and the youth stuff, you say it's a goal. Like, is it going to happen? Is there a plan? Are you already working with contractors? Like, will that start this year?
Absolutely.
Or are we going to sit here next year? It's a goal. Like,
that's a great question. I love it. I love that Liz asked questions like that. Let me first by stating that it was supposed to happen last year, and I am responsible for it not happening this year. I want to take responsibility for that. Part of it is being because in my spirit, I knew that something needed to change, and I wasn't sure exactly what it was at first. And second, God ended up putting a hold on it because of some state things with titles of incorporation, what our name is, what our address is, why they can't find our address, why they can't find our titles of incorporation. We didn't know any of those things, so we had to put the refi project on hold. I did not communicate that well enough. I'm sorry. Now that we are able to fix these things, Bryce did a fantastic job getting all of this stuff together. So please, can we just give a round of applause for Bryce and the work that he did? The work that he did there was fantastic. He already has quotes from contractors for 90% of the projects that we have here. We're going to have a little bit more room in the refi because we're taking the bathrooms out, which means that those contractors that quote us for those things, or also some of the contractors that quote us for other things, don't have to do that, which allows us to move forward with a little bit of that. So some of these things can happen simultaneously. The address change, the new sign, all those things can happen simultaneously. We're also going to put fencing up on the outside. The gravel parking lots can happen as soon as we can pay the money to do that. So But unfortunately, because we paused, we had to reapply with Orchard Alliance. That's already in the works. And then we can take some of those contracts that we have, or some of the quotes that we have, contact those contractors and say, hey, is this still good? Are you still willing to do this? And if they say yes, then we can just give those right back to Orchard Alliance, and then we're right back on track. So the goal is that we will be starting, or actually, I would say we're starting to break ground in the next 2 to 3 weeks, because we're starting the bathrooms. And then once we get an okay from Orchard Alliance, we'll start the downstairs. Will be the first major renovation that we do. Will be the downstairs, and then we'll start working on the kitchenette upstairs as well. So with every intention, we plan on starting this sooner rather than later. Let me say this. The sooner we can get that mortgage paid off, the $21,000 that we have, if we're able to get that paid off, we're able to start sooner, because we're able to put more of our money to it, and we don't have to necessarily wait for a loan to clear to come through, okay?
Just to go on, do you have a floor plan of what it's going to look like?
So I don't have anything engineered, but we have it all written out. If you guys would like to see something engineered, we can pay that. I think the Pine Hill Fire Department just looked for an engineer to give us a quote on what we were looking to do, and it was astronomical, the price of it. So if we want to pay for an engineer, we can, but I don't have anything engineered.
More to see where, like, the kitchen, the children's ministry.
Yeah. My hope is that I'm able to work with Chrissy and Tony, who's currently leading the First Impressions team, to give that layout, and then also work with Pat and Danielle to give a layout. Because, I know what I want it to look like, but it may not necessarily be what they want it to look like, and they're leading those ministries. So I want to partner with them, but the intention is that we have that flow. It's still, the intentions are that everything still flows well this direction, but right now the only thing for up to debate is if we put the kitchenette where the current nursery is, or if we put the kitchenette where the prayer room is. That's the only two things that we're trying to figure out right now. Once we know what that looks like, we'll move forward with it. Yes, sir.
Is there any thought about offsetting some of the cost of the renovations by doing some of that work ourselves, things like painting or things like that, along with the contractors? Is that
There have
something
been
we can do?
conversations with it. I don't think it's a bad idea. Let me start prefacing that. Let me say this as well. I'm going to take my lead pastor hat off right now. Well, no, let me keep my lead pastor hat on. I love you very, very much. I love all of you very, 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 very much, but I'm tired of waiting for you. How many times do we have to communicate things need to get done around here and no one steps up, or the same people keep stepping up? We don't need to do that. We don't need to wait. We can afford the mortgage right now, and we found a way to be able to refi that in the budget that we can already afford. Some of the things we're hoping to be able to offset as much as we can. And then on top of that, we also want the building to look professional. And I've been in some of your houses. I've seen some of your paint jobs, Just kidding. With that being aside, we can keep contractors accountable in a way that we can't keep congregational members accountable, right? Deadlines and things like that. The mortgage company also wants to see quotes, okay? Thought I'd throw that little joke in there. I thought that was pretty funny. Christy. Wait for Katie.
Oh.
She's hustling.
Did you say current nursery for the kitchenette?
Possibly.
Okay. Is I kind of need all the rooms.
Yes. Trust me,
All of them.
Yes, I get it. I get it. I thoroughly understand. This is part of why we've got to sit down and why we've put the refi on hold, because originally the plan was to bring the kitchenette upstairs and it was going to take away a classroom, right? Like we need to figure that out. We can't afford to expand out right now unless the congregation's like, hey, let's just push to expand out. I'm fine with that. I don't care, right? But if we expand out, we get more expenses. You guys got to do what you got to do, So we're just trying to figure out what the best option for that is.
See, the blessing of the ministry is that families are coming and we're gaining more children. The problem with that is Step Up Sunday, not this September, but the following September, will leave that 2nd to 5th grade classroom way over full. Like they're already over full.
I would ask to consider the fact that youth room is not going to be used on Sunday morning, and you could use that as a classroom, right? I'm not saying that that's what needs to happen right now, but I am saying that the size of our actual building, all ministry partners are going to have to get creative with what we're doing, right? Again, nothing is set in stone. We've not started knocking walls down. We've not started painting things yet, but this is the struggle that we have. So unless we sell this building and build a bigger one or start expanding this building, we've got some choices that we've got to make, okay? My plan is to consult all of our ministry team leaders. Nothing will be done without the governing board knowing and the governing board being prayed about it, okay? One second, Dave.
Are they gonna fix the drainage downstairs so to make sure it never floods out again?
Yes. Short answer is yes. That problem has actually already been mitigated to an extent, and we will, when we do the downstairs when we do the downstairs renovation, we will do whatever else is necessary for that as well. It's part of the renovation. It's also part of why it costs so much. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Know that you can obviously talk with me about this at any other time. Yes, absolutely. If the current nursery, the question on the floor is if the current nursery becomes the kitchenette, where would the current nursery be? Right now, the answer is, I don't know. But again, we'll find somewhere for it to go that makes the most amount of sense, right? I don't know exactly. I'm not saying that's where it's going to go. Hear me when I say I'm not saying that's where it's going to go. But when we do the building renovation, we have to make the best choice for the church, all right? Let me preface by also saying no one in this church has 100% autonomy or authority over any square foot of this church, okay? Doesn't matter. If we want to flip everything, we could flip everything. If we want to take everything away, we could take everything away, right? We need to make the best choice for the entirety of our church, all right? So if that means that the downstairs doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, right? Whatever that is, we got to do it. I don't know what is going to go where, but again, that's why we stopped, because we didn't have the answers to those questions, or the answers to the questions raised such unrest that we had to reconsider what to do. Before that happens, other things will already be in the works, so the answer may just reveal itself, okay? Yes, Deb. Thank you for your question, Allison.
I believe in the past that maybe we've had some water issues in the basement.
Dave Sayre just asked that question, and I said it has already been mitigated to an extent, and it...
Oh, I thought he said the sink.
No, he said the flooding.
Oh, the flooding.
Yeah.
Okay.
And during the renovation, both the sink and the flooding will be further mitigated to ensure that if it does flood down, that it won't flood down there again. But in reality of it is in a basement division of a building. There's always going to be a chance that something happens and it floods. Okay.
Are we putting in a sub pump there?
What?
We're going to put a pump in there?
I think there's in the sink or downstairs.
No, downstairs, just in case we do have light.
It's something that we can look into. I think there might be one down there already. I think that was part of the original mitigation. I have to look though. Yeah, it's something to consider, but
My guess would be if the kitchen,
it's not a question. It's not a question.
if it's coming upstairs, then we don't need the sink downstairs, right? Like,
No, because you're putting 50 teenagers down there. Yeah. So. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Great questions, guys. I'm actually really good. You guys are talking. I like it. All right, I don't see anybody else with their hand raising for anything under general discussion. Other than that, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion by Dave Sayre, seconded by the Perrimans. The motion is the 2025 annual meeting is now adjourned. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for holding in. I know that things have been a little different than they have been in the past, but again, per the Constitution and the bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order, your annual meeting is supposed to go that way, all right? We'll put a survey out. In that survey, there will be a question if you want this to remain on Sunday morning. Understand you got here at 10, you're leaving at 12:15. If you want it to be another night of the week, I'm fine with that. You just got to show up. If not, every single time we have an annual meeting, it probably will be this long. Anyone that wants to be nominated as an elder can be nominated at any time as long as we can hold an annual meeting. We can hold an annual meeting at any time, or not an annual meeting, we can hold a membership meeting at any time to vote on those elders. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Go Birds.